Operation Golden Pheasant. Battalions of young Americans, U.S. soldiers landing in Honduras, about 100 miles from a war zone, on orders from President Reagan, called a show of support for an ally in trouble. A powerful display of U.S. military muscle in the face of a reported Nicaraguan invasion. This is the CBS Evening News, Dan Rather reporting. Good evening. The airlift of more than 3,000 additional U.S. soldiers into Honduras is underway. President Reagan's spokesman says they will not see combat. Sending them has raised protests and questions. Questions, including those in Congress, about whether Mr. Reagan is playing partisan election year politics by crying wolf, whether he is trying to stampede Congress into spending more money for the Contras, and whether he is perhaps trying to distract attention away from the criminal indictments against some of his former top aides, including perhaps trying to pave the way for presidential pardons. Mr. Reagan's aides heatedly deny all of this and damn the questions as unfair and uncalled for on the basis of the facts. Our coverage begins with Bill Plant.
President Reagan offered no explanation today of his decision to send U.S. troops to Honduras, but he did pause briefly during a round of St. Patrick's Day celebrations to deny that the U.S. pressured Honduras to accept its soldiers.
They asked for it.
Skeptical members of Congress pressed the Secretary of State, who didn't quite say whether Honduras specifically requested troops.
We were requested to help.
But not, the administration insists, to take on the Sandinistas.
I think it's important that people know that the United States will fight. But we don't have any plan to get involved.
What is the policy? That's the ambivalence I'm talking about.
Reaction in Congress today was sometimes confused, often divided. Opponents of the administration's Central American policy charged it was deliberate and cynical manipulation.
I'm afraid it is another version of gunboat politics and gunboat diplomacy on our part.
They will try anything, it seems, to have their way, including hypocrisy and deceit.
We want the facts, Mr. President. This time, we want the facts, not theatrics. The Oscar award stops here in Congress, not in Hollywood.
Was the administration trying to dramatize its case for more aid to the Contras?
I think that would be rather cynical on the part of the administration or anyone if that were the purpose.
The administration had no choice but to take a symbolic gesture.
All of a sudden, the day after the president asked for this contra aid, now there's a, quote, war going on and an invasion of Honduras.
It is difficult to characterize what we have seen as anything but a public relations campaign aimed at the media to resurrect the failed policy of military aid for the Contras.
Supporters of aid were bitter, quick to blame those in Congress who voted to cut the Contras off.
And I think the Democratic House leadership has shown itself contemptible of the cause of freedom.
The left-wing leadership of this Congress stupidly defunded the Contras. Now we have the possibility of real hot war involving American boys and girls.
White House officials insist the administration's only motive for sending the troops was to make a dramatic gesture which they hope will deter the Sandinistas from trying to wipe out the Contras with one final blow. But the cost is very high. Far from making it easier to get new aid, officials here claim, sending the troops has just made it that much more difficult by rekindling the explosive anger of the Contra aid debate. Bill Plant, CBS News, the White House.
The additional U.S. troops have been arriving in Honduras in groups about a half hour apart. Correspondent John Blackstone was there as the first contingent touched down.
As the first American troop planes arrived in Honduras, the deployment was more a dramatic symbol than a dramatic military event. The force numbers more than 3,000 from the 82nd Airborne Regiment and the 7th Infantry Division, well armed and well equipped, particularly by Central American standards. But the Americans will be kept on this airbase, 120 miles from the border with Nicaragua. Officially, their mission is to conduct training exercises, not to go into combat. The Americans are here in support of the Nicaraguan Contras, but in a roundabout way. The increased American presence is meant to make the Honduran government feel secure, so it will send Honduran soldiers to help save the Contras. Honduras' foreign minister says troops have been sent to the border area, but so far they haven't joined the fighting.
We will not willingly allow the use of Honduran territory, I repeat, as a hunting ground for political opposition in Nicaragua.
The Contras are under attack in an area just inside Honduras that they had considered safe. Their major supply depot is here. If it's lost, the Contras will have almost nothing left to carry on their battle. The exercises for the American troops will last at least 3 days and may be extended depending on the border situation. No limit has been set on how long the force will remain here. In Honduras, there seems no great support for the Contras, but neither is there support for Nicaragua's Sandinista government.
No, I don't like Contras in Honduras. Communists must be expelled from Central America, definitely.
In spite of the military buildup, there is no sense of crisis here. In both official opinion and public opinion, the fighting on the border is seen as a major problem only for the Contras and for America. John Blackstone, CBS News, Tegucigalpa, Honduras.
One of the most serious and important decisions a president can make is that of sending young American men and women into a world trouble spot. In this case, President Reagan's spokesman emphasized that the American troops sent in will not go into the war zone itself. Pentagon correspondent David Martin reports on the purpose of their mission and the concern of their relatives.
The war in Central America hit home today as 3,500 American soldiers trooped aboard transport planes bound for Honduras. They are under orders to stay away from combat, but the soldiers and their families aren't so sure.
It's scary, real scary, you know, not knowing if he's gone, if he's here, or if he does go, if he'll come back.
I'm not afraid, I'm not nervous, I'm just kind of, you kind of wonder what's on the other end.
It's easy for reporters to cover Operation Golden Pheasant. As the Secretary of State said, it's all for show.
They are not there in a, so to speak, shooting military capacity. They're lightly armed. They have gone to an area where we customarily are, and they increase our presence, and they do it in a visible way that gets people's attention.
Defense Secretary Carlucci brought it to the attention of the Soviet defense minister today in Switzerland, complaining about the Sandinista incursion into Honduras.
There's absolutely no excuse for that, and I pointed that out to the Soviets as an example of totally irresponsible and reprehensible behavior.
U.S. officials say a Sandinista force now estimated at 2,000 is stepping up its attack against Contra camps inside Honduras.
There is no sign whatsoever of a Sandinista withdrawal from the Bocai. In fact, the evidence indicates that they're moving ahead as strongly as they possibly can.
But the Honduran military has been sitting on its hands.
Has there been any movement of Honduran troops into that area?
They haven't taken any direct action.
Late this afternoon, the Hondurans flew their first airstrike against Sandinista positions inside Nicaragua, something the U.S. has been urging for the past 3 days. But neither the U.S. nor Honduras knows what they will do next if the Sandinistas don't withdraw. David Martin, CBS News, the Pentagon.
Underscoring the late report of that David Martin's file there, that 2 Honduran jets are said to have struck a Nicaraguan Army headquarters on the Nicaraguan side of the border. So far as we know, there are no confirmed reports of casualties as yet. Nicaraguan President Daniel Ortega today stepped up his verbal attacks against President Reagan's Central American policy and against the United States. And Sandinista government officials again denied that Nicaraguan forces had crossed into Honduras. Correspondent Richard Schlesinger is our man in Nicaragua.
Few details about the fighting are being released in the Nicaraguan capital, but today there was a public escalation in the rhetorical war. The government organized a march in support of the offensive this afternoon. President Daniel Ortega is trying to rally his nation against the deployment of American troops in Honduras.
Aquí estamos dispuestos a combatir contra esa fuerza.
We are ready to fight against those forces and ready to liquidate the famous forces of the 82nd Airborne.
As he has in the past, Ortega charged the U.S. is planning to invade. Radio stations have been forced to broadcast government programs consisting mainly of warnings of war.
Radio Católica has been known for 26 years as the exporter of the word of Christ, of peace, of reconciliation, not the peace of the government, which is based in arms.
While the Sandinistas issued radio alerts, the Foreign Ministry blamed the United States for escalating tensions in Central America.
Mr. Reagan's panicking at the prospect of peace. And an invasion hype is precisely a justification to inject a greater degree and mode of U.S. military involvement.
Just last week, the Contras and the Sandinistas agreed to hold face-to-face peace talks. They are scheduled to begin on Monday. And President Ortega says the U.S. could improve the atmosphere around the table if the American troops in Honduras are withdrawn. Richard Schlesinger, CBS News, Managua.
And still to come on the CBS Evening News, Rita Braver on Colonel North's defenders and their efforts to pressure President Reagan into granting a pardon. And Peter Van Sant on fears that the right cross may be replacing the jump shot in college basketball.
How can you help your home sell faster? Protect the major appliances. If your real estate company can't do that, then you're not listed with the right real estate company, because you're not listed with an ERA broker. Selling a house can be frustrating. If your real estate company can't buy your home if they don't sell it, you're not listed with the right real estate company, because you're not listed with an ERA broker.
We know how you love shrimp. A great deal of shrimp. Whoa, what a deal. Even kids love shrimp.
Shrimp, 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 shrimp. Did we say shrimp? Just checking.
We know how you love shrimp.
Red Lobster Shrimp Festival. Try the shrimp and crab leg feast, just $10.95 on Fridays and Saturdays only.
I've written a sort of educational graffiti with Old English oil. It moisturizes to help prevent drying and cracking. Brings out wood's natural beauty in the glorious manner that befits my glorious manner. Old English helps prevent drying and cracking.
What could top an antacid that works great, that's sodium-free and calcium-rich? Great cherry taste. Cherry-flavored, calcium-rich Rolaids antacid. The relief you want, the taste you desire.
A federal judge today set next Thursday for arraignment of the indicted Oliver North, John Poindexter and Company. President Reagan hasn't ruled out pardons, nor has he criticized his former top aides for what the special prosecutor says was the lying, shredding, and cover-up in the missiles for Iran who got the cash double-dealing. From all accounts, more criminal indictments could come down. Rita Braver reports tonight on what's next and who's next.
North American heroes! North American heroes!
A tiny band of North defenders was out marching today, but it's North's legal defense that will soon be launched. The first strategy, the immunity defense. North, as well as fellow defendants, former National Security Advisor John Poindexter and moneyman Albert Hakim, all testify that the Iran-Contra hearings under grants of immunity. Nothing they said can be used against them in court, and they are expected to challenge every shred of evidence. High-powered attorney Herbert Stern has joined the independent counsel staff just to handle the immunity battle. The second strategy, the lack of intent to break the law defense.
Their argument is going to be, of course we did not. What we thought we were doing was pursuing the lawful goals of government.
The third strategy, the take the whole administration with us defense.
At trial, defense lawyers will be duty-bound to subpoena high-ranking government officials, to examine their records, and to cross-examine them.
That means President Ronald Reagan and Vice President George Bush will be dragged into a trial. And that leads to the fourth strategy, get a pardon. Republican Senator Steve Sims today sent a pardon request to President Reagan, the beginning of an expected conservative campaign. The White House again refused to discuss pardons. Meanwhile, the independent counsel investigation moves into its next phase, going after the current and former CIA and Army personnel, as well as civilians who worked in the clandestine Contra supply network. Rita Braver, CBS News, Washington.
Whatever impact these indictments have on President Reagan and his inner circle, there's the still unmeasured effect, if any, on Presidential Campaign 88. Among other things, the question of whether, as Bob Dole and others contend, Vice President George Bush will yet prove to be vulnerable for the conflicting accounts he has given of his role. Eric Ingberg reports tonight on the Iran deal and the candidates.
Democratic contenders are relishing the opportunity the indictments give them to attack George Bush for his role in a scandal-tainted administration.
It's almost as if when senior staff members leave the White House, they go out with a special prosecutor on their arm. That's not the kind of administration that that I want to lead.
It is a growing sleaze factor. It brings, again, into question the role of George Bush in it.
Bush, who once invited Poindexter and North to his home after they were forced from the White House, did not comment on the indictments, but his spokesman asserted no one questions the vice president's integrity, and these indictments have nothing to do with him or his office. One reason Bob Dole stays in the GOP nomination fight is the possibility of trouble ahead for Bush in the Iran-Contra matter. But Republican primary voters have shown little interest in the issue, and party strategists say that's also true for voters in general.
They made the determination correctly. It was stupid. It was dumb. But the fact is, the ultimate objective of this operation, which was to bring Americans home, to get them out of prisons, inhumane, dirty, cruel conditions, was so noble and so right that they can't fault the effort.
Democratic leaders insist Bush's role will become a major issue in the fall.
The embarrassing questions are going to be asked. And to a great extent, they're going to have to be answered.
Democrats admit the public has grown tired of the Iran-Contra affair, but they hope the white heat of trials and publicity will give the scandal a new life. Eric Engberg, CBS News, Washington.
The Commerce Department today reported the nation's trade deficit widened to $12.4 billion in January, but some analysts said they detected a silver lining in that cloud of red ink, noting that an expected seasonal fall in exports was accompanied by a rarer drop in imports.
Like to see how your cereals stack up to Total?
Lovely idea.
To get the vitamins in one bowl of Total, it takes almost 3 bowls of Special K.
Pass the old brand, Gloria.
Takes 4 bowls of that.
That's why I like shredded wheat.
Well, then you'll have to eat 12 bowls.
You better loosen your girdle, Margaret.
Total has 100% of 9 vitamins and iron and is rich in calcium. That's a stack of nutrition.
In just one bowl.
And for the most nutritious cornflakes, try Total Cornflakes with twice the vitamin nutrition of Kellogg's.
Because Citicorp understands the drive to succeed, to do more than just get by, we've become the nation's largest financial services company, already helping 1 in every 5 American families, with more student loans, more home mortgages, more MasterCard and Visa cards than any other company. Citicorp and Citibank, we'd like you to get to know us better. Citicorp, because Americans want to succeed, not just survive.
Is anything as lonely as an only cup of coffee? It doesn't have to be. Weight Watchers has gorgeous cake, beautiful pie. Bye-bye, lonely only, bye-bye. Weight Watchers, this is living.
Sounds like you need Myoflex, the odorless pain relief rub most recommended by physicians and pharmacists.
On this day after an attempted military coup and rioting in the streets, Panamanian military ruler Manuel Noriega moved quickly to show that he is still in charge. Juan Vasquez is there.
Faced with a show of force by combat troops guarding the capital, Panamanians decided to play it safe today. The streets were quiet for the first time all week. The presence of soldiers restored order after yesterday's rioting, but the Noriega regime has been stripped of its claim to public support. Now it is a government of fear and force.
The people in Panama is afraid. Intimidate the people.
The government went further by ordering the military to take over public services and to arrest anyone taking part in a demonstration. Soldiers seized public utilities to restore electricity and water. The defense forces are now running everything from the National Lottery to Panama's ports to replace striking employees. The tactic buys time, but it does not solve Noriega's problems.
I think it's a temporary thing. They cannot constantly keep the army on the streets. And the pressure is the economic pressure of people not having money in their pockets. That is worse than yesterday.
The government sought to mollify protesting teachers by paying some of their overdue wages. In the Canal Zone, where 10,000 U.S. soldiers were placed on a higher state of alert, Americans were worried.
Can't go anywhere, can't do anything. Just don't feel really safe.
The deployment of soldiers to keep the nation running is Noriega's latest bid to retain power. But Panamanians say yesterday's abortive coup has undermined Noriega's authority by moving the crisis from the streets into the barracks. Juan Vasquez, CBS News, Panama City.
A Colombian jetliner on a domestic flight crashed into a mountain today about 260 miles northeast of Bogota. The Avianca 727 was carrying at least 127 people, no word of any survivors. A judge in South Africa today delayed the execution of 6 blacks just hours before they were to be hanged for the murder of a black official. Martha Teichner is following the case.
The reaction to news of the stay, made much sweeter because in South Africa nobody believed it could possibly happen. Prakash Dr, the lawyer who won today's reprieve, was suddenly a hero. The government said it was not international pressure that saved the Sharpeville Six from being hanged tomorrow. Instead, it was new evidence Dr took to court today. The admission by a key witness in the original trial that he had lied after being bullied and beaten by police. The Sharpeville Six had been sentenced to die for what amounts to guilt by association. In September 1984, during a rent protest that turned violent, a crowd attacked Sharpeville's deputy mayor, beat him, stoned him, and finally burned him to death. The Sharpeville Six, 5 men and a woman, were never accused of participating in the actual killing, only of being part of the mob, enough for South Africa's highest court to rule that they should hang. Today, a car bomb detonated outside another court, 25 miles away, killing 3 people, injuring 20. Public outrage over the sentence has raised the level of tension in South Africa to its highest point in months, leading to the arrest of dozens of protesters just hours before the 1-month stay of execution was announced to give lawyers time to ask for a new trial.
This proves that the judicial system is independent, which is very valuable.
But the reprieve supporters of the Sharpeville Six prayed for is still, so far, a limited victory.
We are rejoicing at the fact that tomorrow we would not have to be mourning.
Today began with families of the Sharpeville Six riding to Pretoria for what they thought would be their last visit to death row. Even if the prisoners get a new trial, there is no guarantee the verdict will be different. But tonight, when their families return to Sharpeville, at least they had hope. Martha Teichner, CBS News, Pretoria.
Bring your home to Pella.
Bring your dreams to life with Pella wood windows and beautiful new Pella wood doors.
Bring your home to Pella.
Whatever you dream of, from a sunny sunroom to a kitchen bay, we'll help bring your dreams to life. Talk to the window experts.
Bring your home to Pella, the Pella Window Store.
Post makes the only bran flakes with zip-pack freshness to keep their high-fiber, best taste fresh longer. I zip what I should have do now.
Post natural bran flakes with zip-pack freshness.
Zippity-yay.
I won my first gold medal in 1956. Over the years, I've won 3 more. But I'm 50 now and my body's changed. I don't bounce back from pain nearly as fast. That's why I take Metaprin.
Metaprin has the same medicine as Motrin, and nothing's proven faster for relief of muscle pain. It's also gentler to your stomach than aspirin.
Hey, some guys quit when they're ahead. Me, I'm going for another gold.
Metaprin, when you haven't got time for the pain.
Time for a quick break and one of my favorite quick snacks, Sunsweet pitted prunes. Surprised? I don't know why. They're good for you and they're delicious. Rounder, plumper, Sunsweet.
The recent violence in Ireland dampened enthusiasm, but in New York, the nation's oldest and biggest St. Patrick's Day parade marched along city streets for the 226th time. Police estimated 1 million people turned out for the occasion under sunny skies. On this day and night, when the NCAA College Basketball Championship Tournament starts, Peter Van Sant reports on a trend among the collegians that could be a tragedy waiting to happen.
This is ugly. Ugly. No reason for this. Many college basketball courts this season have looked more like boxing rings.
Now Martin throws a punch in the back of Smith. Well, there's a forearm. Kessler and Montgomery are squaring off. Oh, and
Many players now talk like gladiators.
You know, every night out it's going to be a fight, you know, it's going to be a war, and we as a team just have to be prepared to, you know, go to battle every night.
1988 has been the year of basketball, and the vicious slugfests are becoming more frequent and more dangerous.
And unless we stop it, believe me, hey, I've been around a long time. I am telling you, we're going to have a serious problem. We're going to have some kid lose an eye, or worse than that, we're going to have somebody die.
Experts say finesse is out, physical is in, as every game is important for teams struggling to make the NCAA tournament, a tournament which can mean hundreds of thousands of dollars for each school.
The great teams of the last 10 years have been teams that shove you around, teams that take no step backward and are very aggressive.
This is a real danger with crowd control. St. John's Providence, fans poured out of the stands to do battle with the players. At South Carolina, Louisville players tried to get into the stand.
Now Fergus Ellison is trying to get over the scorer's table, and so is one of the other players over there.
I think if you give ground, then you might as well not even show up to play the game.
Critics say coaches share the responsibility for the escalating basketball violence.
You got to fight fire with fire. I mean, if you let somebody intimidate you, then they're going to intimidate you and beat you.
Whoever is to blame, the NCAA has had enough.
We are going to put very severe sanctions, as far as I'm concerned, into this fighting, rowdyism.
If he says it's deliberate, it's a flagrant foul.
Future brawls may result in 2-game suspensions. A penalty officials hope will take the fight out of the players. Peter Van Sant, CBS News, Atlanta.
And that's tonight's CBS Evening News. We hope you'll join us tonight at 8, 7 Central Time for 48 hours. This time, 48 hours in Miami, a great city and a good community fighting back against drugs and other crime. Until then, Dan Rather. See you soon.
Organ transplants are a modern miracle.
Let's close. Good thing we found a donor.
Can you believe there's a time when people wouldn't even talk about donating organs?
But the need is still critical. That's why Dow is funding a major educational effort to encourage organ donation.
Mrs. Simpson, Jenny is doing fine. She's a brave little girl.
If you heard the report on 59 cold cereals by a leading consumer magazine, you'd fall through the floor.
Mine's high in calcium.
And salt.
Salt?
High in fiber.
And sugar.
Sugar?
Lots of protein.
And added fat.
Fat?
The magazine rated shredded wheat tops in nutrition. For no added sugar or salt, low fat, plenty of fiber and protein. Shredded wheat. And nobody else.
If you're concerned about heart disease and your doctor advises exercise, the right foods, and an aspirin a day, you should know that heart specialists recommend
Ecotrin more than Bayer when they're concerned about aspirin irritation because it's safety coated. Ecotrin, the one heart specialists recommend.
Splish splash, I was taking a bath long about a Saturday night. Gloved up, got a clog in my tub, but Liquid Drano fixed it up right.
Liquid Drano, the liquid strong enough to be called Drano.
American dreams, American realities. A city of the future fights back. Join Dan Rather for 48 hours tonight.
This is CBS.